Hey, friend. Hey, and welcome back to another episode of Boss Talk with Moet. Of course, I am Moet. You can follow me everywhere on Instagram, Twitter, Snapchat, anything that's anything. That's IAMMOETT. That's IAMMOETT. And y'all know I like to come here each and every Wednesday and bring to you guys someone that has an enlightened journey, an enlightened inspiration, someone who is able to drop some gems on you because you can always learn from someone else's story, someone else's journey. And that's the whole reason for this platform, the whole reason for everything that I do in regards to anything. But definitely, I want to introduce you guys to a super dope, amazing individual. He has been showing up in many ways. He is super enlightened, he is super impactful, and he's super motivational. And his name is Akeem Roberts. Let the people know who you are, what you do, how they can find you, all of that good stuff.
My name is Akeem Roberts. I'm currently a social worker and a therapist. You can find me on Facebook at Akeem Roberts and on Instagram at A underscore King King underscore Roberts as well.
Nice, amazing, amazing. So, how long have you been doing social work?
I actually got my social work, my master's in social work last year in May, and I got my associate license back in October. But I've been a counselor since 2018, so I've been working with people for ever since I got my undergrad degree.
That is amazing. And what got you started in that field? Like, what gave you the drive to go after that? Because I know that's not just something that you wake up and be like, oh, let me do this.
Right. I actually started out as an accounting major.
Wow.
I went to Valdosta State with my looking to get my degree in accounting, and I failed accounting three times. And I took a sociology class, and I started learning about like people and how the media affects us, how our world around us affect us, and it caught my eye, and I learned more about being a counselor. Um, because growing up, counselors were like the people that talk to crazy people, and the
Right.
more I learned about it, the more I felt like, all right, like that's it, that's what I need to be doing.
That is amazing. That is amazing. And it's so amazing how on our journey, whenever we're doing things, like you say, you failed accounting three times. Like a lot of times it takes us just running into that brick wall sometimes to find something else that's like, hey, you know what? I'm really passionate about this other thing. I thought I was passionate about this, but I'm really passionate about this other thing. So, like you said, in regards to like normally the stigma around counselors and mental health advisors and different things like that is that it's only for crazy people. So what is your thoughts and opinions in regards to like that stigma and those statistics?
I well, I've also been on the other side of the couch. Like I've been in therapy, and I know like it's super uncomfortable. But I think the more and more like society grows, that the stigma is slowly changing. Um, Through my position, I give people an experience that's more personable. I try to make sure like when people come to see me or I'm speaking about therapy that I'm getting kind of give it allowing them to experience the experience without being in therapy. I like I would tell all not therapists but clients that I try to make it feel like a conversation, and I feel like depending on who your therapist or counselor is, you're gonna get a different experience. But with me, it's like two people having a conversation.
Right. And I feel like that's the way Jesus, excuse me. I feel like that's the way that it's supposed to be in regards to whenever it comes to therapy and counseling because I've been in therapy as well and I understand the importance. Like the first time I started therapy, I was like felt like I was in the principal office like I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing in here. So whenever you like you took that initiative and you were on the other side of the couch, like how was that experience for you?
It was because like you said, you off is like, I know why I'm here, but like, where do I start? Because I tell people on the therapist side, I'm like a vending machine. Like I can only do it what you put in, and it's it's uncomfortable because you're opening up in ways that you probably never opened up to anybody before. Um, you're exposing a side of yourself that everyday people don't see, and it's to somebody that you don't even know.
Right. Right, absolutely. So whenever it comes to like therapy or people thinking about therapy, what are some things or some signs that you would say that people should look out for, that it's like, hey, you now you need therapy in regards to that. What are some signs and different things like that that you would suggest, or some tips for people trying to get into therapy?
The first thing that came to my mind was when somebody else is like, "Hey, I think you need to go to therapy," but it's all based on that individual to come to therapy. Because if you're not ready to come to therapy and you're going for other people, you're not gonna you're not gonna put into it what you need to put into it to get something out of it. I would say when you find yourself in situations where when you're asking those questions like, why am I doing this? Why do I keep bumping my head up against the wall? Why do I why do I respond in ways that I don't necessarily care to respond in? I feel like one, it takes some self reflection and awareness because no, I think it's just when you start seeing a pattern of negative things that you're not liking because we're responsible for our own lives, then maybe you should think about seeing somebody or talking to somebody.
Yes, absolutely. I can agree with that 100%, because a lot of times, like, we try to work through things ourselves. And sometimes we need outside help to assist us with working through those things. So that way we're able to continue to do a deep dive to see, like, what those triggers are, what is causing us to do this, different things like that. So let's see. So whenever it comes, let's talk about like mental health, like male mental health, because I know a lot of times, like, we look at men as like, oh, they're so strong, they don't need anything, da 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 da, whoop whoop whoop. So, what is your thoughts on that?
I think men are way more emotional than women. A lot of guys probably wouldn't have, but because we so much on the inside, or groomed to be handle or manager these feelings that we're feeling, and they typically come out as anger, and we also don't have the words to even things that we're feeling because we don't know what to label. We don't know how to accept I'm overwhelmed. We don't know how to accept that I'm burnt out because we're always taught to be indestructible. Like the fact that my kids even look at me, they think I'm indestructible. I get an elbow in my side, and I'm like, man, that hurt, and they're like, you'll be all right. But men, I feel like struggle a whole lot in silence because of the fact that they either don't know how to express what they've never been taught to how to identify what they're feeling.
That's good. That's good. I know, like, a lot of times that's true, because especially whenever you're growing up in like a certain household, different things like that, then you don't we're not always taught to express ourselves. We're not always taught to talk about our emotions and different things like that. So whenever it comes to raising children and different things like that, what are some tips that you can give to help with them expressing their emotions and their feelings and different things like that?
I can say in some ways I've learned a lot. Like I went from like I tell people I went from being a single guy to meeting my wife, and she already had two kids from a previous marriage, which are mine, and now we have a third. And from like being actually model what you want to change in your family. Like, all right, if the cycle has been you're supposed to keep in these emotions, model. Like I hug my kids, I kiss on my kids, I actually tell them even though they feel uncomfortable sometimes, like yo, I love you. Or like you've actually been a blessing to my life rather than you thinking that the world of me. Um, I give the situation. I grew up in I would say poor. Didn't realize I grew up poor, and so we stereotypical thing of you're supposed to finish your food. And I remember I was like, yeah, you're supposed to finish your food, and my wife was looking at me like, what? Like, and I checked myself eventually, but also apologizing, not allowing your past traumas and experiences in life to be put on them.
That's amazing. That's amazing. And I think that that's key because a lot of times, even as adults raising kids, sometimes we don't always feel like we get it right. We don't
Right.
always, and it doesn't mean that we're always going to be 100% right. But like you said, leading by example, those different things like that, and really having that open communication, I feel like that is key with children, even whenever they get upset and they're storming around and all of that stuff. You gotta you gotta give them room to express themselves and have those conversations. So in regards to that, what would you how beneficial would you say that it is to like do family therapy or get your kids in therapy and different things like that?
I think it would do a lot of good in home unknowingly and sometimes knowingly. Us as parents, we restrict our kids from speaking their minds because we're parents, we're adults, we're all knowing, and in a family therapy session, kids hopefully if they have like the right therapist that keep their mind without the fear of repercussions because a lot of times when kids tell the truth, it hurts our feelings. And because we don't know how to, delve or manage our feelings, it usually comes out with frustration and anger on that child, which like we were talking about a little bit before, it reinforces my mouth is gonna listen to me anyway.
Yeah, that's amazing. And that is so true. That is so true. So, whenever it comes to like someone looking for a therapist, what are some tips that you would give them whenever it comes to looking for a therapist? Because, like sometimes, like whenever I went to therapy, like I had this one therapist, which I had to put a pause on for a moment. But, like, whenever I used to take my children to therapy, and then like the therapist had left that facility and was going to the school system, it was like, well, I don't want to go to nobody else. And I'm like, what's the difference? Like, what is the difference? It's just a therapist. And then, but whenever I got in therapy, then I understood it because now I don't want to go to another therapist because it's like you sat down and you started unpacking all of this stuff with this person, and
Right.
you don't want to go through all of that over from Jump Street. So, what is some advice that you could give to someone that is looking for a therapist?
I'll say that each therapist has the ability to give you something different than you got the last time. Like it sounds bad because, like you said, you got to unpack and retell your story pretty much. But someone may come to me as the black male therapist, and they may get a perspective, and then you may go somewhere else and get like a white male therapist and get a different perspective. A black woman, a different one, and a white woman, and also the age ranges play a different they play a role on what kind of feedback or guidance that you're going to get too. So um, I'll say like don't discount the next person because they may be able to give you something that the person that you kind of become accustomed to, they can give you something different than that person.
Yeah, yeah, that's true, and that's beneficial. So I know, like, even whenever I was in therapy, my therapist talked about like having a safe space and knowing that you have a safe space and to be able to express yourself and different things like that. What are some tips that you can give people to finding that safe space or creating that safe space
Space or in
in therapy and life in general?
I was my meeting her has given me like I felt safe in, and as someone who is actually mindful of you. Um, that's one thing about the therapeutic relationship is that I don't matter. Like the person that's sitting across from me matters, and they're mindful of like what are your triggers. If you are actually trying to communicate, hey, this bothers me or that bothers me, that they're giving the effort to adjust themselves to create a safe space for you. And I'll go on to say, like, if someone's not willing to give you a safe space, then that person may not be for you, therapist or a personal relationship.
That's good. That's good. I know Eric and Marina Worry talk about that a lot in regards to because a lot of times, sometimes in whenever we're talking about relationships, sometimes in relationships, like people will let you tell all of your stuff just to be able to use it as ammunition whenever they get mad or different stuff like that. And it's not supposed to be like that.
Right.
So, what are some tips that you can give people that are in relationships that may be dealing with communication issues and different things like that? Like, what are some tips that you can give them to kind of get that communication flowing, or at least try to get that communication flowing?
First and foremost, like over everything, like you don't fail to communicate until you stop communicating. Like if I'm talking with you, Moet, and you're not understanding what I'm saying, if I just stop, then communication fails. But if I continue to try different words, like even use analogies, if it takes that for you to understand what I'm saying, we're still communicating. Even though it hasn't clicked yet, like we're communicating. And I feel like a lot of people they shut down, and once you shut down, like that's where you fail to communicate.
Mm, that's good. That's real. Cause I know like we have that. Well, I'm me talking about myself. I used to have that problem like all the time. I'd be saying something, I'd be like, you know what, just forget it. Not even gonna say nothing else. Like, don't even worry about it. So
then
that's like,
and then
go
I
ahead.
even I don't know like a session that I used with a child and a parent was it's like a walkie talkie. Like make sure that you're listening before you speak. Like before, make sure that person is completely done talking. Like before you actually regurgitate anything.
Yeah, yeah. So also in regards to that, like whenever it comes to like the communication aspect. A lot of times people will listen just to respond instead of listening to understand and actually be able to like have true communication. Like, what are some ways to get around that? Or what are some ways that we can be good at actively listening and not just listen to respond?
Being self-first, like one person holding the other person accountable. Like, did you actually say it? And in therapy, like we actually ask, like, is this what you said? So before I actually respond, let me make sure that I processed and got everything that I need to get before I give you what I'm giving back to you. So I think asking questions because like you saying people responding just to respond. Some people even are like so in their head that they create scenarios or take things however they want to take them because of their emotion. So actually asking the other person, is this what you're saying? Just so I can clarify what I'm hearing.
Right, absolutely. So, what are let's see. So, what is next for you in your journey? Like, are you gonna Like, is social worker your end goal? Or I ain't trying to get you in trouble or nothing on this live. I, but like, what's next for you?
I'm next. Definitely get my clinical license. License back in I got over 3 years before I get fully licensed with my LCSW. Um, I was talking with you about it before. Eventually, don't know when exactly. I would like to have a podcast, share and educate people to make our lives easier, and even sharing, giving up.
Yes, absolutely. I think that would be so dope and so amazing because you, especially as far as like being a licensed therapist, you have like a lot of key things that you're able to share with people. So whenever it comes to like male mental health,
Uh,
what is something that like hits home for you, that you are so passionate about, that you hear it and you're like, man, I just got to say something in regards to this?
um, ah, I think the negative stigmas that men have, um, because a lot of issues that men have, I feel like stem from. I heard to yesterday, and the guy talking about like, I seen another one like why men cheat. A lot of men don't love themselves enough, and they look for love through either women. They look for love or a sense of being through their they we um, look for a sense of love through all of these other things, but we never truly are taught or even learn how to love ourselves because we're so focused on everyone else, and that primary source of feeling like we're worth something or somebody.
Wow. Wow. That's amazing. And that is real. Like, that is real. And it's important to be able to support the men that are trying to love themselves and understand those things, because we have a lot of toxic masculinity out here. So
Definitely.
so it's important to be able to help the ones that are really tapping in, even if they're transitioning from toxic masculinity to a place of loving and understanding. So one last question:
Mhm.
if you could go back and talk to yourself, your younger self, before you failed accounting, before you went to school, before you did anything, what would you say to you?
Whew. What would I tell myself? There's nothing to be afraid, and that whatever you go through, you got the strength to endure. Like,
Wow, that's amazing. That is amazing. And that is true. Steve Harvey says that our survival rate is 100%. We made it through 100% of our bad days. So it's
yes,
important to, like, we're resilient. We may think like we're not, we can't get through this, or, oh my gosh, this is the thing. Like, bro, look at what you've been through. Look at where you're at now. Like, it's amazing.
and each person, either the people that are watching this and listening to this, you can look at your own week and great it is.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. So I know I said that that was the last question, but something just popped into my mind, um, because I wanted to touch on suicide awareness, different things like that. As being a mental health professional, like, what are some like key pieces of advice that you could give people that may be facing suicidal thoughts, or may know somebody that are facing those things?
I think well, first and foremost, like there's a suicide hotline. So like, if you do feel like you feel like there is a need for you to, in your life, to definitely contact the suicide hotline. Um, Second is that get someone else's like point of view, because we're like our worst critics. And I feel like a lot of us, we spend too much time in our mind rather than actually in reality. Because if you're alone in the dark, like physically, your surroundings support any dark thoughts that you have. And just definitely like, don't be alone. Get someone else's, like, not trying to be funny, but get someone else, because is misconstrued.
Right. Right. And I agree with that 100% because I know like a lot of times we can be so harsh on ourselves and so hard on ourselves. So if we don't meet this certain thing or we don't do this certain thing a way that we thought it was going to play out in our mind, then we're like, yo, you're so stupid. How can you da 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 da? And we're just
That's
like
us.
going in on ourselves. And it's like, that's good. That's good key advice. So, one last time, let the people know who you are, what you do, how they can tap in with you, if they need to schedule a session with you, how they can get in contact with you, all of that good stuff.
So again, Akeem Roberts, therapist slash social worker slash therapist, whichever one you want to put first. You can find me on Facebook at Akeem Roberts. Instagram a_underscore KING underscore Roberts. Um, you could reach me. I can't really, you know, have therapy or be someone's therapist that I already know personally. But if you do need a therapist, or if you're looking for a black male therapist, we actually have two here at Georgia Behavioral Services in Warner Robins, Georgia. We have two locations. We have we have everybody. We have black men, we have white men, we have white women, black women, young, old, like whatever you actually feel like you need and what's comfortable for you. But it's Georgia Behavioral Services in Warner Robins, Georgia.
Amazing. That is amazing. So, thank you so much for taking your time and coming in to speak with me and everything like that and dropping the gems on me. Thank you. Well, not just on me, but to everybody that tuned in that is watching the replay. And if you're watching the replay or you watch live, I appreciate each and every one of you guys that choose to take your time and to tune in. And definitely, like I always like to say, that if you didn't catch any gems, you definitely need to start this over from the beginning and press play again because some gems were definitely dropped. But thank you guys so much. Remember that life is too short to be anything but motivated. Now get out there and turn your dreams into a vision and make that your reality. All right. See you guys next week.
Appreciate you for having me.
Bye. All right. Thank you.